I never believed in urban legends, not until the night I heard the crying from the woods. That was the night I learned some stories are true, and some things should never be found. It was supposed to be a quick hike. My friend Mark had insisted on it. "Let's go out and explore that old trail by the abandoned village," he said. "It'll be fun, a little adventure before it gets too dark." I agreed, more to shut him up than because I wanted to go. The village was said to be cursed, abandoned years ago after some unspeakable tragedy, but I never bought into the rumors. We set out just before dusk, the sun dipping low behind the treetops. The trail was overgrown, barely recognizable as a path anymore. As we walked, Mark started recounting the old legend, the one about the villagers who had disappeared overnight, leaving only their shoes neatly lined up in the center of the village. The only sound that remained, according to the tale, was the soft weeping of a child, echoing through the trees. I laughed it off, but the deeper we went, the quieter Mark became. The air was heavy, almost suffocating, and the forest grew darker, as if the night was pressing in on us faster than it should. And then we heard it, a faint, distant crying, barely audible but unmistakable. I stopped dead in my tracks. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice shaking more than I wanted to admit. Mark nodded, his face pale. "It's just some animal. Let's keep going." But the crying didn't stop. It grew louder, more insistent, as if whatever was making the sound was getting closer. It was the cry of a child, but there was something wrong with it, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It was hollow, echoing, as though it was coming from somewhere deep within the earth. We continued down the trail, our pace quickening, until the crying was all around us, surrounding us from every direction. Panic set in. I wanted to turn back, but Mark was ahead of me, his eyes locked on something in the distance. I followed his gaze, and that's when I saw it. In the clearing ahead, there was a figure, a small child, standing perfectly still. The child was barefoot, dressed in an old-fashioned, tattered nightgown, with hair matted and dirty. But it was the eyes that stopped me in my tracks. They were black, empty pits, staring straight through me. "Let's get out of here," I whispered, but Mark didn't move. He just stood there, as if transfixed, his eyes locked on the child. The crying grew louder, almost deafening, and then, without warning, the child began to walk toward us, slowly at first, then faster and faster. But the movement was wrong, jerky and unnatural, like something pretending to be human but not quite understanding how. I grabbed Mark's arm, yanking him back, and we bolted. We didn't stop running until we were out of the woods, gasping for breath. The crying had stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was almost worse. We never spoke about what happened that night. Mark refuses to acknowledge it, even when I bring it up. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I hear that crying again, faint and distant, like it's calling to me, beckoning me back to those cursed woods. And I know that if I ever return, I won't make it out a second time.